Hey, what's going on everybody? This is NGS and welcome back to another video. So the topic for today actually draws inspiration from a very good friend of mine known as Eli. He goes by Dark Inception on this here interwebs. Really chill dude, big comic book junkie, and he just so happens to be a giant, Spider-Man fanboy like yours truly. Anyway, in the video that he made, he was talking about superheroes on film, more specifically the critical reception that the brand new Fantastic Four movie has garnered. Fantastic Four, for those of you guys who are unaware, don't worry about it because this movie has gone under different names. You got Fantastic Four, Fant Four Stick, like this is a brand of deodorant or some shit, Literal Dog Defecation, and the most popular one of all, the best reviewed movie of 2015 on Rotten Tomatoes. But it looks like it's about to be usurped by Hitman Agent 47. Who didn't see that coming? Who didn't see that coming? Anyways, in the video that Eli made, he was talking about critical reception of superhero movies, and he was kind of perplexed about how many bad reviews the new Fantastic Four movie has gotten, and how different things would be if this movie was released, let's say, 10 years ago. It was a really interesting discussion that I really wanted to give my 2 cents on, and if I had pennies on the floor somewhere, I would. And that was completely not staged whatsoever because this is a direct recording. So I guess I have coins lying on my floor like no tomorrow. Bada bing, baby! Anyway, so it's important to note when you're talking about superhero movies and the critical reception behind them and everything that the first thing you kind of have to understand is that every single person is going to have a different review on something, regardless of what the situation is, regardless of if they're a hardcore super fan who sleeps with Superman tidy whities, or if there's just a regular Joe Schmo who never even heard of the name Kal-El. It doesn't matter. Everyone's going to come from a different point, different avenue in life, so their perception on the movie is going to be different. And you can sit here and argue till you're blue in the face whether or not someone's right or wrong in their review. In this situation, it really doesn't matter, because while there are instances where people are, just flat out wrong when it comes to movies, that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're not going to talk about whether or not someone's right or wrong with that. We're going to talk about it at how they perceive the movie, as far as like acting, as far as directing, cinematography, writing, all these things that really, for the most part, if you're not counting the source material, things that should matter in a movie. So, taking it back to like the early days of the 1970s with Richard Donner's Superman, with Tim Burton's Batman in the 1990s and such, superhero movies were indeed popular to say the least, but they were never the forefront of, like, let's just say a summer blockbuster. It was very rare to see a superhero movie come out in general, let alone it be a big summer blockbuster that people were looking forward to. It wasn't until the late 1990s when you had Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, Bryan Singer's X-Men, and the first Blade movie come out, that Hollywood started to look at superhero films a little bit more critically. They were thinking to themselves that, hey, maybe we can actually make money off of these sort of things. I like to call that trio of movies the holy trinity of comic book movies, not because they were necessarily great movies, to say the least, because they were all, passable at best, but they opened up Pandora's box for superhero movies to come out since. I mean, not only did we get sequels to all those movies in question, but we got, lesser-known heroes get their own films. We had Daredevil with Ben Affleck. We had Elektra, spin-off of Daredevil. We had Catwoman. We had the first 2 Fantastic Four movies. And even actors like Nicolas Cage got a chance to play a comic book character in Ghost Rider, and he got to play him again in Ghost Rider Rides Again because, Nicolas Cage couldn't be Superman, so he wants to play Ghost Rider twice. Like, I guess, whatever. Still love you, Nicolas Cage. Regardless of that, we had a lot of, success with superhero movies, and even graphic novels got a chance to be on the silver screen. We had Watchmen. We had so many other things. But even though superhero films were popular in the time, they were never like this major thing. They were never something that's more than, oh, it's just a comic book movie. That's it. It wasn't until the release of Christopher Nolan's Dark Knight that we had a lot more people talking about superhero movies. It wasn't just something that the comic book nerds could enjoy once a year. It was something that, oh, I hate using this phrase, but it was a piece of art, to say the least. It was something that a lot of people could look at as a film that could stand on its own 2 legs. The Dark Knight was really the first film, a superhero movie that kind of made an impact, that got a lot of people talking, and it got a lot of people in the industry think to themselves that, well, we don't just need to make this movie and it be sort of good. We should strive to make a better movie. And we've seen that since then. Looking at the Marvel Cinematic Universe, we've seen the movies, I think, for the most part, get progressively better. I mean, we've had a couple of hiccups here and there, like the Iron Man sequels, Thor, what have you. But for the most part, the films have done better. And the next major stab is, of course, since we're talking about the Marvel movies, the MCU. If The Dark Knight was to the industry in terms of making superhero movies better, then the MCU was for the culture. That was what got a lot of people who weren't into comic book movies into comic book movies. Whether or not they actually went and started picking up comic book series or waited till Robert Downey Jr. appeared on the screen remains to be seen. Regardless, The Dark Knight did what it did. The Marvel Cinematic Universe is doing what it's doing. DC apparently has something going on with Justice League, Boogaloo, whatever. But it's interesting to note that these things have basically become bigger than they ever have. But while we spent the past couple of minutes talking about superhero movies being a success from where they started, what does it have to do with critical reception? So Eli brought this up in his video. He was talking about Avengers Age of Ultron. You know, it's not the most recent one because it just had Ant-Man, but it's the most popular Marvel movie since, well, the last popular Marvel movie, which was, if we're talking Age of Ultron, yeah, it was Guardians of the Galaxy. That was the last big one. But Avengers Age of Ultron, it was one of my personal favorite MCU movies. I really enjoyed it. Cap was whipping ass. He was giving out democracy like no tomorrow. It was a really enjoyable movie. But I seem to be in the minority in that case. While the movie did really well at the box office, a lot of Marvel fans, specifically in the MCU, seemed kind of disappointed with the film. Maybe disappointed is kind of harsh. They just felt let down in comparison to what came before. And that's totally acceptable when you're looking at the giants, like The Dark Knight, like the first Avengers, like Captain America Winter Soldier. I mean, you look at those movies and they consistently raise the bar in some way, shape, or form. You know, what The Dark Knight did for the industry in moving the movies forward, you know, more away from the whole dark and gritty thing. Just because The Dark Knight was influencing something doesn't mean that they're going to make it dark and gritty. What The Dark Knight did and what the Winter Soldier did and what Avengers did, it's easy for people to, I guess, kind of get spoiled because we've had really great movies that stand on their own 2 feet. So is it okay for us to be critical of the new movies that come out? Like a lot of people were talking about Ant-Man. You know, Ant-Man, it was not an amazing movie. It was not a horrible movie. It was an okay movie. It was just that. It was an enjoyable movie. But a lot of people were looking at that and thinking that it was supposed to do numbers like, you know, a Marvel movie was supposed to break records and all of these things. You look at all the movies that come out since and they're constantly, you know, just one-upping each other and they're always grossing more than the last. So, you know, in that respect, I think, yes, we have gotten kind of spoiled because we're expecting so much more in terms of that. But I think as a whole, superhero movies have gotten better compared to 10 years ago. When you're looking at what is considered like the worst superhero movie nowadays, I mean, it's subjective on what you're talking about. But if we're speaking from the start of the MCU to now, if we're talking specifically Marvel movies, you know, the worst ones are like, what, Iron Man 2, you know, Iron Man 3, Thor, those kind of movies, you know. Those movies, while they're bad by today's standards, 10 years ago, yeah, I think they would have been received better because they're not bad movies. They're just bad movies of the time right now. Okay? Now, a bad movie is a bad movie is a bad movie. Let's just get that straight. A bad movie is a bad movie is a bad movie. The new Fantastic Four movie is a travesty. So I don't think releasing a movie like that 10 years ago would have really done much better for the film because it's still bad as a movie. Now, sure, would it have gotten a little bit more of a cushion if it was the first Fantastic Four movie? Yes, that is true, but even looking at the last Fantastic Four movie, that movie wasn't great to begin with either. And just looking at the scores of that, I mean, is there really much of an increase going from this to that? They're still bad movies. So what you're arguing right now is just, oh, it would have been the lesser of two evils in that respect. Which is something I think we can all agree on. If the movies were released back then, sure, they wouldn't have been received better, but they would have gotten a little bit more of a cushion because they fit into this category, whether they were the first of their kind. You see that a lot with movies nowadays. It was the pioneer. Regardless of whether or not it was good, we're just going to give it a good review because It was something different at the time. It was, breaking the norm and breaking tradition. It was doing something different just because. So you saw a lot of things that gave movies back then a little bit of a cushion, but nowadays it's different since everybody is doing it, everyone's having fun, that you got to be more critical about it. And in that respect, I do agree. I think we should be more critical of movies, because if we're sitting here and we're just damage controlling for movies that we enjoyed but not as much as we thought we should have, then where are we going as a society? We're really going nowhere. We're stagnating ourselves into believing that everything is okay when we should be demanding better. But what we have gotten have been better movies. That is true. So we just do need to keep demanding more and more. But, there's only so much you can do when you're just sitting there and talking about the movie online. You actually have to get out there. And, well, in this case, if you don't like what you're seeing in a movie, don't support it. That's the best thing you can tell these studios. It's very rare that a studio will actually listen to the fans and do something that they were interested in. Like with Spider-Man 3, people weren't happy with that. The critical reception to that was really not that great. So they said, screw this, let's reboot it. And then they rebooted it again. It's like, wow. And I mean, Fantastic Four, it's kind of up in the air what Fox are going to do. I mean, they say they're doing a sequel, but who knows? They might end up selling the rights back to Marvel in addition to an X-Men TV series being on the air. Who knows? Because nothing is set in stone in Hollywood, as you guys know. So superhero movies as a whole, have we gotten harsher on them? I don't think so. I think that we do need to be harsher on them if we want better movies to be shown. And it has to be judged on a case-by-case basis, title by title, because not every movie is going for the same thing. I mean, some things are doing differently than others, so we should respect them in their own rights, provided that they're actually a good movie and they set out what they achieved to do. You get what I'm saying? So I'm really interested in your guys' take on this. What do you think about superhero movies? Like, do you think we should be harsher on them so we can get better movies out of them, or do you think that we should just enjoy them for what they are? As you know me, I think that we should, demand better movies, because if we're not, then we're really just stagnating ourselves. So I want to see some, it's weird to say this video responses, but we can't. But I want to see some discussions on this. Armin at the Comic Book Cast, I want to see a response to this, my friend. Pafagio Friedman, get out there, do this video. Young Rots 112, do this video. Anyone out there who wants to respond to this, just let me know, and maybe we can just get a whole discussion going. Anyway, from me to you for now, I'm GS signing out, and like always, I will catch you guys later. Peace.